All right, so I'm going to count down from 5, and on 0, hit play.
Okay.
I am at 0-0, and assuming if anything like fucks up and it like doesn't immediately play, let me know, and we'll resync and do shit.
Sounds good. So are we going to click on 1 or 0?
0.
Okay.
Okay, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, click.
Okay. I'm so ready for this old-fashioned Japanese. I love how it says Zoni, by the way.
Yeah, well, it's always like that, like Whack-Donalds and Zoni.
I forgot about Whack-Donalds. So I think when I first discovered this show, I think one of my followers tweeted at me something about just, this is a really interesting show this season. Mm-hmm. And I was just having one of those lazy Sundays where I was like, you know what? Whatever. I'm not doing anything else. Yeah. I think I was like playing an MMO or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched it, and I like the part where he's just this, what's his name in the security booth is just talking to this guy way younger than him.
Yeah.
And being like, oh, you like Rakugo? That's usually something that older generations like.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, what is Rakugo?
That's kind of the thing. No, it's because you get into the show and you have no fucking clue what the hell this is about because there's no like Western equivalent. The closest thing that we have is stand-up comics, and even then, there's vast differences between the two because stand-up comics like make their own shit and perform it all standing up because that's what it's called. Rakugo's done when you're sitting down, and they're just retelling stories that have been around for like a long ass time. That's actually one thing that they never really explained in like the entirety of the show is like who the fuck comes up with these stories to begin with. How did they become Rakugo stories? Like
I never even thought about it until you just mentioned it.
Yeah, like the storytellers come up with it, or like because they never at any point say, oh, this is like brand new material. Every material that they use throughout the entire show has been around for ages, and it's like, they're doing that. Yeah. Like everybody fucking knows what the thing is. And this old guy, he's been there in the entire show. He's always the old guy, and I have no idea how old he is or how the hell he's not dead.
How far are you into this series?
Oh, I finished it.
I still have only seen the first episode.
Okay.
So this is the second time I'm seeing this, and everyone that I know that's seen it from start to finish has rave reviews about it. They love it. They're like, it's one of the best animes I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is probably going to sort of remind me to get back into it and really finish it.
Yeah, okay. Well, brief thing then, is that this prologue, because it's freaking like 47 minutes long, is a prologue, but the story itself doesn't take place here. So, this guy with the cane.
Right.
Like the master Rakugo artist. The main story is about him as a kid and growing up with his best friend and them learning Rakugo.
Really?
Yeah.
So this is just...
This will probably lead into the second season because there's a second season and another arc that takes more place in this timeline.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, but this season is past timeline. So it's actually really kind of odd because you watch this entire episode and it's 40 freaking minutes, so you think it's like big and important.
Yeah,
and then they immediately wipe it all clean. And in episode 2, they go back into the past.
That's so funny. I had no idea. So in a sense, this sort of ex-convict, ex-criminal, whatever you want to call him, he's really just here to help them set up the stage.
Yes. And I'm guessing he'll eventually come back because he's there in the last episode. Because the last episode, it comes back to this time frame, and then the second season, from the clips that they put at the end of the last episode, it seems to take place entirely in this time frame. So it'll eventually be useful, but yeah.
I didn't know that. That's really interesting.
Well, it's kind of both nice and harmful at the same time. It's nice because it's actually a very good introduction. Because you have this convict that sort of knows what the fuck Rakugo is, and he really wants to try it. Like he's there like begging for his life. But he doesn't know like all the intricacies of it, so it's a nice introduction for most viewers like us.
Yeah, exactly.
No clue.
He's that person who's like, wait, what do I do? And then he's like, well, I'm glad you asked. Let me explain. And then he's exposition the character basically.
Yeah. And then they go back and they actually go into more detail, starting from what traditionally is a young person learning Rakugo.
And can I just say, I love what's his main character's name again? Or not main character, but what's this younger guy's name again? Yeah, I don't know.
They haven't said it yet, so I don't freaking know.
You're supposed to be the anime expert. I'm just kidding.
Supposed to, but names is the thing that I always screw up with. Not only in like what they are, but also pronunciations.
Like while I'm doing the erased review that I'm working on right now, I keep pausing whenever I try to remember Yashiro's name, and it's just like there was a Korean, not to get off on too much of a tangent, but there was this old like Korean manga I read a long time ago, and I didn't realize at the time that it was totally like a fucking like a shoujo manga. And all the characters were Korean, so all their names were like like it was like really hard to remember all their names. Racism. That's my best style. Yeah. But it's yeah. So I know exactly what you mean by that. I really like this character though because he's so annoying.
Yeah.
And he's just pretty dumb. So it really makes it. It makes him kind of relatable. Like, you want him to get better and you want him to stop being such a rookie. Because I think everyone to some degree has that experience in their life where they're like, you know, oh, I remember when I was cringy and terrible at this one thing. And ever since then, I've gotten better. And when I remember how bad I used to be, it's like I just don't even want to remember. And I think he contrasts nicely with everyone else being really good at their craft and also very serious.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the thing is like they set up these character archetypes. So like this convict, as they're doing their explanation now of how much he's like Shiroroku from the past, and then that character becomes kind of a big deal because they go back to the past, and this is before he is dead.
Yeah.
But then, as I was saying before, it's kind of a bad thing because you know from this prologue that the guy's dead. He's gone.
Yeah,
he's not here in this timeline. So you spend the entire rest of the show wondering, okay, when's that gonna happen?
Exactly.
But you never know when.
You know, it's always interesting because I think that everyone's general understanding of spoilers is that they're really bad. You know, ultimately, people want to avoid them. But I think they can make for something really interesting. Like in a show I watched not too long ago, I knew that a character was going to die, or I knew that someone was going to be revealed to be a bad guy, and the show was just kind of dancing around it, really skirting around the idea, and then I was just sitting there like, wait, did I misread that spoiler? Is that character actually going to do this? And then it was interesting to see the show pull red herrings and try to, you know, sort of fool me and make it too obvious, and then make it really subtle and just play with my expectations, and like, I actually tweeted out a screenshot from the end of Undertale, and it's kind of like one of those fake-out things. It's like, I'm not going to go too into detail just because, you know, no one really wants to talk about Undertale right now.
Yeah,
but
it's outlived its purpose.
Exactly. But, like, I had tweeted out a picture of sort of the game's fake-out ending, and people were like, spoilers! And I was like, if you think this is actually a spoiler, then you're going to be really glad when you see the actual ending.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people are of the mindset, like myself, that everything can be a spoiler.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
When it comes to like anime, if it happens in the first 3 episodes, I don't care about saying it because that's basically what you would use to get people into it.
Exactly.
Especially if it's in this first episode. So saying that one character he's dead, well, they've already announced it.
Pretty much.
So it's not that bad. But here, right, like kind of where we are right now, 8 minutes in, this is the kind of shit that I'm actually really happy they did, because what I actually expected them to do and what they normally do in this sort of thing when there's like this art or sport or something that they're trying to learn and teach is they kind of gloss over what it actually is and then just show you like the reactions and so forth in the background, because it's all the behind the scenes stuff. That's what the show's supposed to be about.
Yeah.
But I really liked here with this show that they actually performed shit.
Yeah.
Now this one with the Shinigami, I think it was actually somewhat truncated because I don't think it's only a 2-minute long performance. I doubt that.
Yeah, exactly.
But later on, they do show entire Rakugo performances.
Yeah. And I thought that was so cool because most anime these days, like I think back to Kill la Kill, and that show just like, bam, like things were happening within the first 10 seconds. And I realized that works for a lot of their demographic, people that just don't have a great attention span. And clearly this is a show that defines itself by being a bit different, by catering to a sort of different demographic that can appreciate more mature themes and more, because most people, I would say at least 80% of people, probably even like 85-90% of people watching the show have no idea what Rakugo is.
Yeah, no, that's kind of the point, I think.
Yeah, so for them to show an entirely uninterrupted monologue was a really nice touch.
Yeah.
Because it also shows you what it takes to be a good Rakugo, what do they call them, storytellers?
Basically.
And to see the old man kind of switch all his voices and change his mannerisms and his body language was like, it was really kind of entrancing. So even though it was like it was like a 6 or 7 minute bit, it felt like it just went right by because you were really pulled into it and it was genuinely entertaining.
Mm-hmm. But they spend a good chunk of this show going on about like how everything changes and how Rakugo's now, well, like they said earlier with the security guard, how it was like meant for like older people.
Right.
And that was like a big
it's kind of
plot
a dying
point.
craft now.
Yeah, well, it was a big plot point throughout the show of just like how some people are for trying to, change things with the times while others are like, no, this is tradition. You don't freaking change tradition.
Yeah.
And even right here, like, that this girl is very good.
Right.
Because they're kind of alluding that she's very good. She learned from her dad, who they've said multiple times is very good at the art.
Essentially a legend, yeah.
Yes, but then, Mr. Master here is not giving her the time of day. She's not allowed to practice or perform or what have you because, well, she's a woman and rah, sexism.
Japan.
Oh, Japan. But I do know that, like, since this point, I can't remember what time period this is. I think this is after World War II?
Yeah, I mean, considering that it shows them popping into a limousine and they have nice suits and everything.
Yeah, well, they have suits even in the past. And I know during the past segment, one of the world wars happened. I just can't remember which one. Because Japan did participate in both of them. I think, actually, this is quite a ways after this. So this might be like the 50s or 60s. But I can't remember entirely when. And I do know that, like, since that point in time, there have been female Rakugo performers. Like, even if you just Google image search Rakugo, you'll see some female performers on stage doing it, which is very nice that they've changed that. But at this particular point, they're making this thing of, no, things need to either change or stay the same.
There's actually kind of a parallel that can be drawn from, Rakugo sort of going the way of the... what term do I want to use? I don't know. I'm not good at metaphors.
The library, the magazine, the newspaper.
Yeah, going the way of print media, for example. That's actually a good example. I was reading, or I was watching like some news report on TV, and they were talking about opera houses, and they were talking about people who frequent them. And it's almost entirely the elderly and the people who kind of, patrons of the arts and everything like that. And it was interesting to think of it kind of in that lens of like, oh, this is something that clearly the people who grew up with it or the people who truly appreciate it, like they're from a different time, and now it doesn't quite have that same appeal. So that's pretty much what I compared it to in my mind, Rakugo and opera. Because really they are both, they can be dry, they can be, it's just not really what we're used to. Like all this sort of fast-paced, high-stimulation, electronic, looking at LCDs and all this stuff. Like, it makes sense that our generation wouldn't be into sitting there and watching one person tell a story by themselves with no other visual or audio cues.
Well, the other thing is that a lot of Rakugo, like, I know that when he performed the Shinigami a moment ago, it wasn't very comedic, but a lot of the Rakugo that they show in the rest of the show is very comedic.
Yeah.
Which is sort of a problem, and it's probably one of the major reasons why I don't really like the show. Like, I like the show and I enjoy the show, but I don't get the humor of it. So, like, when they perform comedy in this show, it's like you can see them say the line, and then the entire audience that's there, they burst out in laughter.
Right.
But then I'm sitting there going, okay.
Yeah, all right.
Bravo. Well done, I guess.
From what I've gotten, it seems like the comedy is it leans kind of towards punny and slapstick.
Yeah, which can work and can't work when you're trying to watch it in subtitles.
Exactly.
Because even though this isn't
the timing.
like... Well, yeah, it's mostly the timing, because even though it's not like necessarily true for all of Japanese, a lot of it is all done in Yoda speak, at least as far as like us English speakers are concerned.
Yeah.
So the punchline isn't where you expect it to be. So
yeah,
then
exactly.
You kind of feel this like disconnect when it happens. You're like, okay.
Yeah.
And even then, even if the punchline was in the right time, there's this whole cultural barrier thing where things would probably be funny to the Japanese that you just don't get because you're not Japanese.
Yeah. That actually kind of reminds me of an anecdote told by a comedian. It might have been on a show, it might have been like a scripted show thing, but there was like a comedian who was telling jokes, and half the audience would laugh, And then after a few moments, the other half of the audience would laugh, and he was just so confused. And then he realized that the other half was deaf, and they were being told the jokes through an interpreter. That's the first thing that came to mind when you mentioned that. And it's funny that you say, like, Yoda speak, because I had a friend in high school who hosted, like, a, anime club, and he actually spoke a bit of Japanese, and he would kind of help to explain to us, like, oh, yeah, you just say things backwards. Like, instead of... she and I went to the market, it would be market went, she and I did.
Yeah, it's not perfect. So like in the little bits of Japanese learning that I've done, it was only ever like mentioned at the beginning, just kind of to get you in the right mindset.
Right.
But it's not like 100% rule. It's not like everything can be translated to 100% accurate Yoda speak.
Yeah, it's the closest understanding we could come to.
Yeah, it's just the closest way that you can get to understanding the sentence structure of how things are generally positioned.
Because it really is kind of a quirky language, and it's funny because in English we are so specific, and we have like fucking 12 words per one Japanese word. We have like 12 different synonyms, it feels like.
Yeah.
Which is why a lot of the time in Japanese music, and especially like, rap and hip hop, any music you've heard in like Persona, they always rhyme with English, because in Japanese, at least from what I understand, someone in the comments correct me if I'm wrong, I probably am, is they don't have a lot of words in Japanese that both rhyme and make sense in context.
Probably not, no.
So that all kind of makes sense.
Yeah, but even though they don't have the biggest vocabulary, they still have the biggest amount of freaking kanji.
I actually had a college professor. I was taking a cognitive psychology course, and I went into my professor's office to talk with him about, like, doing a test that I missed or whatever one day. And I saw he had some kanji on his desk, and I asked him, and he said his son went to Tokyo University, and I was like, holy shit, dude. And he used to practice kanji, like every day. He tried to get like 100 down or something, and you have to remind yourself with like stories or whatever to come up with little anecdotes, to try to, little stories for each character. And he told me, he's like, it was just too much. I just gave up after all because I can't. It's really, really difficult, and I can't even imagine. It makes you really realize just how insanely disciplined, and also just, plain insane, a lot of Japanese people are, because for them to be able to, I believe they learn kanji all throughout their lifespan. It's like they learn a good chunk up until adulthood, and then they kind of finish off the rest in their, as a geriatric.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, it blows my mind. Like, we have like 32 something like that characters, or no, it's like 26 or something like that characters, and they have like 100,000.
No, not 100,000. What they have is like
or something.
2,500 some odd kanji characters, but each kanji character has multiple meanings and sayings.
Oh yeah, so it's kind of like conjugations.
Yeah, so that's kind of the problem, and you have to like memorize them. So when you see a kanji, you're like, okay, is it this or is it this?
Yeah, it's everything's context.
Yeah, you have to do the whole thing through context.
God, that's a nightmare. I had trouble with French class. Can't even imagine doing this.
Yes. And now we've reached the point in the show where this boss guy shows up, and he doesn't believe in Rakugo at all. Like, fucking all. And of course, now we have this master that's just like, well then, allow me to school you in what I do.
And I love how you have two equally badass characters with different kind of styles of badass. You have one that's just kind of the hard-ass grandpa. And then you have the other one that's straight up, like, a criminal. Like, he's probably killed people.
Yeah.
And so you get two different kinds of, and I'm a pretty heterosexual guy, but they're both kind of sexy in a way. Like, they both kind of have that strong confidence. Mm-hmm. And I really do think it's interesting with, am I allowed to talk about things that haven't happened yet, or?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I do think it's really interesting how by the end of it, even though he kind of, this young dude sort of flubs nervously, and the boss at first
even
is,
like right here, he's just like, I don't,
God,
he's just pressure.
Immediately the boss is just like, this already sucks. I already don't care about this. And it's just, the boss the whole time is just, you can tell he's trying to fight it. You can tell he's like stubbornly resisting, like, I don't want to like this because this is old and it's stupid.
Yeah. And
then as time goes by, isn't he like laughing riotously?
Yeah.
He's really enjoying it.
I also like some of the character designs here, like the fact that he has shark teeth.
Yeah. Amazing. That's always really charming.
It just adds to his character because that it's just kind of like how he is. He's very weak-willed in a lot of ways, but the fact that he has these shark teeth, it is like a little mischievous at the same time. He's like he.
Yeah, exactly. He's kind of a cute character like that. Like he's very, yeah, like you said, he's mischievous. He's very much like a rapscallion. He's kind of you could say he's kind of got that punk character, and it makes sense considering that he used to be in like a gang or the mob.
Yeah, he used
to
be in a gang, but you always think that he's not like one of those guys that would probably go out of his way to like kill you or punch you in the face. He just likes hanging out with those people.
Yeah, like he'd kind of be one of their flunkies.
Yeah,
he'd be one
he
of
thinks
the grunts.
they're cool and he hangs out with them. But then now he's found his passion.
Yeah,
because he listened to the radio play.
He really is a likable character. That makes me also it says Yotaro Yurakute. Is that
Yotaro is his name,
is it okay? Yeah.
So it's Yotaro.
He really is, and I love that any anime character, you can automatically make them more charming by giving them like that kind of V-shaped smile when their mouth is closed.
Yeah,
it adds to that sense of them being very coy.
Mm-hmm. No, I remember the main character from Gatchaman doing that because she was just kind of like that character, although she was like very airheaded and so forth. But she always had that V smile, and it was like, oh, it was great.
My whenever I talk to my artist and I have him do art for my channel, he ends up he always tries to screw with me and do something to piss me off, and he usually likes giving me an open mouth with a little lump under the upper lip. So he tries to give me the K-on teeth. And I tell him to fuck right off every time he does it because he knows I hate it. He always draws me like a Lucky Star character or whatever, and I'm like, Alex, I'm going to murder you. This is where you die.
Now, then if you ever do a video on Lucky Star, though, then it'll fit perfectly.
No, then I'm going to draw everyone like they're from Initial D.
Oh. And just have Eurobeat playing in the background because it just adds to the aesthetic of the whole thing.
Oh my god. I need to go back and like watch Initial D, and I was going back and I was watching G Gundam because I remembered really liking it as a kid. And then after watching it now, because whenever I go to the gym and I run, I bring my iPad and I watch anime. But I try to watch anime that's not going to be like super fan servicey because I don't want people to think that I'm like a rapist when I'm at the gym looking. It's already bad enough that I'm watching anime in public.
Kind of anime, yeah, that's fair. That's understandable. Yeah. So you watch freaking G Gundam. That's great.
Yeah, and as I do that, I realize, wow, the parts where they aren't fighting are really boring. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just so it's only the parts where they're fighting. I'm just like, yeah, like I'm fist pumping in the air. It's awesome, but
you should watch like Rakugo, and then you can like.
Yeah, no, that actually occurred to me because I'm always scoping out new shows that I can watch that won't make me look like a freak in public. Because with anime, this
won't be one of them.
Yeah,
with like anime, there is a geisha woman later on, but they never show anything.
Yeah, it's always such a wild card with most anime these days because they're always gonna have some panty shots or whatever just to mess with you. Mm-hmm. But with this one, it's so straightforward.
Yeah,
like I really genuinely enjoy. So the part we're watching now is the bit where he's telling the story about like the burglar that's under the floorboards. And
it is the first time we're actually shown, like I mentioned before, this is the first time where they actually showed the thing in its entirety.
Yeah,
and
the
it's
whole
an interesting
performance.
choice too because he's obviously the student. Yeah. So it is kind of weird that they chose the student to be the first time you see the full thing through. But it works really well because whoever they got the voice act this guy, I can't remember who it is off the top of my head, but I know I've heard him in a bunch of things. He does a freaking brilliant job at this.
And it's really interesting because isn't it like after this performance, the boss is like, that was bad, here's all the things you did wrong, and we're just sitting here with no real expectation of what should be good, Rakugo.
Yeah.
And we're going, that was good. Yeah, I like that, was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so charming. Mm-hmm. Like, no more.
Yeah.
His inflection is the best thing.
Yeah, it's great.
It really is charming whenever you have, and every time, this is a total non sequitur, but every time I see people wearing like this old fashioned, like all the what do you call them?
Now the garbs and so forth.
Yeah, but like the specific robe, I'm forgetting what it's called exactly.
I can't remember.
Yukata or
Yukata's female, and I know I'm not sure if it's called a gi for this sort of thing. I know like when in martial arts they're gis, but I think that's a different kind of robe.
Yeah, people in the comments are just like, obviously it's this, and I'm just like struggling to remember.
Mm-hmm. Now the music picks up.
Yeah. That is such a great cue of like, okay, here's where it's starting to get a little wacky.
Yeah, and it's like it adds a bit to it. Probably this is like maybe a bit of like training wheels for it because normally they wouldn't have this in the performance.
Exactly.
But for us watching the show, why not?
It's to help with the pacing for sure.
Yeah.
Because like I whenever I'm like editing videos, I'll always notice that if I add like some silly, wacky, very subtle music behind a joke, like there's this song from Phoenix Wright that plays whenever you're talking to a weird character, and it's like dun 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 dun, dun 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 dun, and I played that behind a joke, and it really enhanced it. So it's always interesting to see how people utilize audio cues to make things really, to add that sort of punctuation. But yeah, every time I see this old-fashioned garb, kimonos and whatever they're called, it always makes me realize I have to go back and finish Samurai Champloo.
Yeah, you kind of do. Like I know people that have are listening to this and have watched my review and be like, "But you hated Champloo," and I'm like, "Yeah, I kind of did," but that doesn't mean that I don't recommend people to watch it. I don't think I actually recommend. I can't remember what I gave it. It was either a stream it or a skip it. I can't remember. It wasn't very high, and people were really pissed that I did that.
I just think the sound. It's funny because there's some anime where I will really, really like one or two elements of it, and then the rest is thoroughly forgettable.
Yeah.
But I still love it just for those elements. Like obviously, Cowboy Bebop has its faults, but I think that anime overall, the complete package is really, really good. And then there's shows like No Game No Life where I love the soundtrack, I love the colors, the characters are really charming, but I could do without the fan service, and I could do without the really just the fan service, honestly. Everything else about that show I really enjoy. And so it kind of makes it a hard recommendation.
And the incest and
and the incest and the lolicon and everything. For some reason, doesn't resonate with everyone. I just can't wrap my head around why. The 11-year-old panty shot, I just don't get it.
There are some people that are into that thing, which isn't extremely good.
Yeah, I mean, hey,
but at least they're watching the animated version and not like
exactly.
Actual.
I was gonna say as long as it's fiction, really, there's nothing that bad about it. But
yeah, it's just sort of questionable.
Now you can have me on future podcasts worrying that I'm gonna bring up Lolicon again and get us into a deep philosophical conversation.
Oh boy,
I can't wait.
It'll be great.
But yeah, like that's. I really do think that that's one of the best things about this show is that it's just so. It's all there. It really doesn't need any extra gags. It doesn't need superpowers. It doesn't need time travel gimmicks. It's just a story with a really unique concept.
Yeah, it's just this story about this art that can actually be entertaining because it's Rakugo. I'm actually extremely surprised that this is the first time I've ever actually heard of Rakugo because, like, I've watched period pieces of anime before, but this has, like, never been something that pops up. Like, you see geishas and you see samurai and all that stuff. But Rakugo is, like, one of the premier pieces of entertainment for back in those eras.
Right,
You never see it anywhere else in anime. It's, like, never brought up. It's never mentioned, and I always was curious about that.
Yeah. There's only one, there's that other form of Japanese theater where they, kabuki. Kabuki's like the closest thing I can think of to anything like Rakugo.
Yeah.
I've
even
never
that
heard
I've
of
seen
Rakugo before.
In other anime, but Rakugo is just not. Maybe it's because they don't want to actually get a good enough voice actor to do Rakugo, because if you're going to do it, you need to do it justice.
Yeah, you really do need to be a talented voice actor to be able to do Rakugo. Like, you need to have a very flexible range.
And all the performers they get for this show are just really, really good at it.
Yeah. I mean, I love when they have the old man go up there and they show him. I forget if it's happened yet or if it was, if it comes later. I think it comes later. The part where he's like, he ends up falling asleep and almost ruining the show.
Yeah, no, that's later. We still have like 20 minutes to go.
Yeah, I'm having fun with this. You might need to cut out a lot of this just because I don't know if you're gonna.
And the highlights must be cut out.
Okay. What is it?
Look at his smug face.
Yeah,
he's just like, hey, there you go.
He's like, it's fucking good.
You enjoyed it, didn't you? You loved it.
I knew you'd like it.
Freaking loved it. Don't go tsundereing on me now. Come on.
I fucking told you, bitch. I think my favorite thing is that everything about this, minus maybe some of the lights, I think, they have traditional electric bulbs and everything at the top. Mm-hmm. And then there's lanterns, and there's the rice paper sliding doors and everything. Yeah. And everything's bamboo. And then he just has like a condenser microphone in front of him with like an XLR cord going along off stage. Mm-hmm. I just think that's really an interesting mental image.
Yeah, and I'm not actually sure how that's supposed to be set up. I know in some cases, like, they use that for radio recording.
Right.
And then, like, that's how, what's his name, got into Rakugo in the first place, because he heard his master do Shinigami. But even into the past sections of the show, they still have that mic there, or at least one similar to it. So
yeah,
like, is it also like set up to a sound system in the theaters for like people in the back or so forth? Because
I'm assuming if it's a big crowd, because a lot of the time, if it's a smaller venue, they don't need a mic at all because it's just a small room.
Mm-hmm.
So
I always question that, because a part of me thinks that makes sense, but then the other part of me is just like, no, you've been to opera, you've been to Broadway before. They don't always need mics, although sometimes they do. Like a lot of the bigger Broadway ones, I know that they use mics.
Yeah, they'll have like lapel mics and you just can't see it or something.
Yeah, but there are some times where they do their best to do voice projection. So
yeah, it's. I just love how evil this dude is.
Yeah, and it's funny because like you think like he's this evil, mischievous asshole that's just like so stuck in the classics that he's just going to keep doing that, and then they go back and like the rest of the show, he's not like that at all. He's actually a very nice character. He's just like a cynical bastard now in his old age.
And then you see how he develops. That's really interesting. I'm totally going to have to actually watch all this now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think for a lot of your viewers, this is going to be the first time that they've really seen or heard of this?
Probably. Because it is one of those gems that just like popped out, and it's not for everyone. So like I'm in the middle of writing my review for it. Maybe even no, my review. I don't know if my review is going to be up by the time people actually watch this or listen to this, but it might be. And I'm not entirely sure where I'm gonna put it yet on the recommendation scale because there are parts of it I don't like. I don't really follow up with the comedy. I don't feel like there are parts of this show that are necessarily for me, but I still appreciate like everything that this show's trying to do. So it's like one of those things where I rate things like Grave of the Fireflies, and I rate things like Akira very highly. They both have like Certified Frosty under my rating scales, but I don't necessarily like them. And in like the case of Grave of the Fireflies, I will never watch it again.
Yeah.
I have no intention of doing that, but you probably should watch it. And that's kind of what I feel here. It's one of those things where for a lot of people, I think that they would get a lot of enjoyment about it or out of it. But I also don't think that this is the kind of show that is for everyone.
Exactly. It's very niche for sure.
Mm-hmm. But if you are into this sort of thing, you will get really into this sort of thing.
Like I checked out the first like 2 or 3 episodes because the thing I do with everything is I'll check out 2 or 3 episodes or chapters or whatever of something, and then I'll just kind of drop it because I have ADHD and I can't focus on anything for any long period of time.
Oh, yeah.
And I was watching Tatami Galaxy, and I thought to myself, this is niche as fuck. This is really out there.
Yeah.
Hence the word galaxy. And that was a pun. Thank you. I'll be here all night until I go to sleep. But I always like there are some things that just you can tell they won't appeal to everyone. Like I always have to tell all my friends just how much they owe it to themselves to play the Phoenix Wright games. Because on the surface it seems kind of like this is a sort of specific thing. It's not really for me. But then you get into it and you realize that it has like everything. It has really good comedy. It has great writing, a lot of great suspense. The music is fantastic, except for the second game. And just like
the second game has its moments, but it doesn't. But then again, that could just be me not remembering everything from... What is the second game? Justice for All? Yeah, Justice for All.
Justice for All, yeah.
It might just be not remembering and being like, oh, no, all the good music from Justice for All is actually from the first game. But I know, like, Trials and Tribulations had some great things. Like, I listened to freaking the Dark Coffee theme all the goddamn time.
Oh, yeah. The second game just has, like, where the cornered theme is like
the best cornered theme is from the original game. Even when they bring it up in like Apollo's game and Ace Attorney 5, the best version is still from the first game.
Yeah, absolutely. The first game does so many things well, but then the third game, I think my favorite thing about Apollo Justice is that because it was built on the DS from the ground up, it you can tell that everything about it is higher quality, the sprites, the audio quality, everything.
Well, that's because the first 3 games were all done in the same engine for the GBA, and they all look the same. It's kind of like this trilogy of games that's their own subset of things. Yeah, and then I know Apollo is technically Ace Attorney 4, and then the one for the 3DS is Ace Attorney 5.
God, I love that series.
But they're very different than those first 3 games. But those first 3 games are like one big, giant story, and I loved it.
Yeah. It's just so good, which is why I'm glad that they're doing an anime adaptation of it, even though I'm not fond of...
Yeah, it's not amazing.
I really hate the animation.
I have my qualms, but we should watch Ace Attorney on Frostwatch some other time.
That'd be cool. I'm down.
Yeah.
Hopefully we won't have as many audio issues that time.
Yeah.
Did you want to tell your audience what happened?
Well, we'll do that after the episode.
Okay. Yeah, I am pretty much the master of diatribes and non sequiturs. So it's both. I
can't. Oh yeah, no, I'm sorry. I can't actually remember this character. Now I'm watching it again. I'm just like, you don't show up again. Why?
Yeah, he seems like he'd sort of be like a managerial character.
Yeah, no, 'cause I'm trying to remember what he's doing.
Maybe he
here.
owns the venue.
No. He's also a Rakugo performer, and I think he's there trying to be like, oh, you've taken one apprentice. I think he's a prospective apprentice. I can't remember. Either way,
maybe he's like one of his higher up students.
He seems to be like full of himself. Well, the master guy, he only has the one student. That guy. That's all he's got.
Oh, okay.
And see, like he's insulting his he's insulting his apprentice.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you put him on. Well, he insisted on it. So, well, what am I?
I always love whenever they have the both conversations going on at the same time, where you can see the subtitles for what he's saying.
I'm glad that they subtitle both. It is kind of make it a bit harder to try and read all of it.
Yeah.
But if I ever have problems, I just make sure no. You read the bottom. As long as you have the bottom, you're good, because the background is literally just that background. You don't have to pay attention to it too much.
Yeah, exactly. It's just kind of an extraneous little thing.
Yeah, it's just like, money candy.
It really is funny how, depending on how good the main character is, that will really kind of lead people to continue a series or completely drop it. Like for me, Shinji Ikari, for example, was one of the biggest reasons why I just have a really hard time getting into Evangelion. Now that they're doing the remakes, I completely understand the appeal. But that's still something that always bugs me. It's like, would you just stop? Like, Dot Hack is one of my favorite video game series just because I'm really nostalgic for it. And
I feel so sorry for you.
Don't. It's good. It's a good game.
Fucking Quarantine, man.
Was Quarantine bad? I actually never truly finished it.
Oh. Well then. We'll get into that later.
Like I know how it ends, but
that's a whole sidetrack piece of bullshit right there.
I know it's incredibly expensive.
Well, because it's like by the time that Quarantine came out, nobody was fucking playing it, and it requires the other 3 games, so its audience was very limited. So that's why there was only so many of them, and trying to get a copies.
Yeah,
piece of bullshit. Same with Xenosaga Episode 3. Like I own it. Finally, but I've been collecting the 3 volumes of Xenosaga for like the last 10 years, trying to find copies that were not like $400.
You know how much I got Quarantine for online?
How much?
Like a good quality? $150.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, that's pretty much. I think I got Earthbound, like a really good cartridge, for like $130 too.
Jeez.
But I needed it just because it's something you gotta have if you're really truly passionate about it. But yeah, and so anyway, in Dot Hack GU, the main character, Haseo, is just the biggest piece of shit.
Oh, yeah. I've played GU, I've completed all the way through.
Yeah.
But with the original Dot Hack, I stopped on Quarantine because
Did Yuki Kajiura have a hand in doing the music for that too, or did she just do Sign?
I think she did Sign, and she did the insert songs for the original trilogy. I don't know what she did in GU, if anything.
I'm gonna have to look that up. But I found that even though it was a great game, I had a burning dislike for Haseo. And then as the series went on and he got more developed. Yeah. And I like how they even had the little you know how you could get those little extra movie things by meeting certain conditions, like data draining X amount of times or whatever. Yeah. There was one that just gave a video kind of talking about Haseo's character and how he's impulsive and how he's arrogant and how he's quick to anger. And they're like, these are the typical personality traits of an adolescent boy. And I was just like, oh, that makes sense then. I was like, it all comes together.
Mm-hmm. And then here we go with the master.
Yeah, I was about to say this
and there he's falling asleep like a douche.
Yeah, and I love how he just kind of goes with it. When the snoring comes on, he just keeps rolling with it.
Yeah, but it's like this is the other part of the example of the show, because this is much more traditional Rakugo that's not extremely entertaining. It's not the young guy style of Rakugo. That's why he's falling asleep.
Yeah.
But it is still very traditional. It's still what a lot of people know as Rakugo. So,
and in a sense, it's also good for viewers because it's so serious. They have this bit where while they're still paying attention to the story, they
know, yeah. So
they're
like
mildly
if
amused.
you listen to the story and you're getting bored with the story itself, you're not like, you don't feel bad about it because you know that there's a character there. He's literally falling asleep.
You're empathizing with him.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thinking about this stuff, it really is kind of genius in a way. Like, it's like
there's a lot. That's why I like appreciate it, even if there are lots of this show that I don't like, because a lot of it's just like really smart.
Yeah, and I do love this bit where they're showing like the different lighting, even though clearly he's not in a room where they're changing the lighting. And the part where they actually show a man biting into snow was kind of one of the only ways they could visualize that.
Yeah, so they add things that aren't necessarily in the original Rakugo performance. And then he just rolls it into the story. I love that.
Yeah, and that is something that really honestly is one of the biggest, one of the biggest strengths of an improvisational actor is they'll use that.
Yeah, he's just lucky that the snoring actually stopped after a bit. I don't know if they don't show like somebody going over to the guy and like moving him out of the way.
Yeah, it's just
I don't even know why the snoring was that loud. It's not like he was next to a mic or anything.
Maybe he just really is that big of a snorer.
Maybe.
He's just a really loud. Whoever marries him is going to be screwed.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Your snoring is so loud it fills up an auditorium, sweetie. I can't fucking the strongest earplugs in the world can't help you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's one show I also need to check out is the new Lupin the Third series.
Oh, yeah.
I need to finish that. I've only seen I tried to watch it twice, both times on the phone when I'm like,
on the phone.
Yeah, well, it's like because I'm always like in the bathroom or something whenever it occurs to me. I don't know why. I'm always just like I'm always doing my business and I'm like, oh yeah, Lupin the Third, the new season, and then I get halfway through and then I'm like, all right, well, I'm done in here, and then I just forget to come back to it because
it is
ADHD.
There it is. He's just like, no, yeah, you fell asleep. You're so in shit now. Like, look at him. He's just like, oh my god, what have I done?
And I love how you kind of feel that anxiety with him because it's like, this guy actually seems serious.
Yeah, and then he's just like, yeah, no, you're done. You're gone. Yeah. You're expelled.
And then for the rest of this episode, it's like he tries so hard and
like you agree with both of them because on the one hand, you're with the young guy because he's like, well, that shit was kind of boring, so I don't really blame him for going to sleep. But then you don't really feel like the reaction is unwarranted because he's like, well, if you really liked Rakugo, you wouldn't have fallen asleep and like interrupted my storytelling.
Yeah.
If I wasn't such a boss at this, that would have
been
really bad.
Yeah. It's like clearly you're not really all that interested in this. This isn't your calling.
Yeah, but like it's done in a way that you're not like pissed or annoyed at either character because they're both doing things that are fully understandable and they give their points of view very well.
And I like how do they still have, in Japan, do they still have people that take you by cart that, like, just run?
Probably. In some places. I don't think it's as prominent as it used to be. And definitely not a prominent thing in, like, freaking downtown Tokyo or anything. But,
yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's still a thing somewhere.
Yeah, for sure. Because, like, isn't, like, 80% of Japan still really, really old-fashioned except for the big, big cities?
Yeah. Like, despite, like, the big technology boom, like, in the 80s and so forth, that only seems to be a thing in the big cities.
Yeah.
Like, if you go outside to, like, the old towns and everything, there's still very big, like, rice farming communities. And
and a lot of them don't even have, like, centralized air.
Yeah, no, they don't.
Or heat or anything.
No, like, AC is kind of that weird thing. So
so bizarre.
I've heard stories from people that have visited Japan and like just the change in technology, even as far as like washrooms go. Like you go to a washroom in like downtown Tokyo, and it's probably the most technologically advanced washroom you have ever been in your life. You leave Tokyo, and it's like this old, rundown, haunted washroom squatty potty, and that's all you got. And it's like this big divide. There's like no standard.
If I ever make a lot of money in the future, my girlfriend and I are just totally going to go to Japan and just have all of the ramen. Because that's one of the things I hear. This is also quite a non sequitur, but I love that in Japan, they focus mostly on the broth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in China, they focus mostly on the actual noodle.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, every time anyone talks about ramen, I have to get it. I have to go get ramen. It's just, it's the most like mouth-watering thing for me.
Well, where I am, there aren't actually many good ramen shops that I can go to in general. Like, I know there are a couple of ramen places in the city that I live in that I just haven't gone to yet, but I don't own a car, and I don't want to, like, go out of my way, spend, like, $10 in public transit to go to this ramen shop and it end up being crap, because then I'd feel like, well, what the hell's the point of this? But there is one Japanese restaurant. They don't sell ramen downtown. But they do this kind of all-you-can-eat sort of thing with a lot of other dishes, and their miso soup is so goddamn good.
You gotta get miso.
And because it's all-you-can-eat, like, I have, like, everything else that they have, like rolls and meat and all the ways that they do shit. But then I also just, like, I have this constant bowl of miso soup, and every time they come back to the table, it's like, well, what do you want next? And I'm like, refill this, please.
Yeah.
I just have constant miso soup.
Yeah,
I drink
always,
the broth like it's a drink.
I always get, it doesn't help that they always come in, like, these tiny dishes, so I always get, like, 2 or 3 misos before the entree actually gets there, and it's just the best thing. You can't get any Japanese food without some miso.
No.
But I went with my girlfriend lives in Quebec, so we went there, and there's a place there where they have sushi buffet, and the concept immediately sounds kind of disgusting, but it's not really good. It's really good sushi. It's like thoroughly well made, and you pay like a flat rate of $15 or $20 per person, and you get as many as you want. It's the best thing ever. But here in Atlanta, we actually have a pretty good array of coffee shops and Japanese, ramen shops and everything like that. If you're ever in town, I'd love to treat you.
Well, I can't remember the last time I was in Atlanta. Most of the times I've ever been in Atlanta, it's just been in a car driving straight through downtown on my way to Florida.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Well, hey, man, next time you're driving through, I'll treat you.
Yeah, totally will. I'm getting a car soon, which will hopefully help my convention trips and not have to worry about cars. Yeah, because otherwise I'd be like even worried about MagFest, because my normal ride for the last 2 years, he's moving to California, so I'm gonna be like,
yeah. See, most of my friends just fly, and then I'm like, you lucky.
I can't afford that for everything.
No, me either. Me either. It's lucky.
And now he's back. He's now back, and he's just like, I will sit out in the cold for fucking ever. And then the old guy's like, yeah, fine, sure, whatever. Yeah. We'll do that.
I now officially have to finish this series because you've rekindled my passion. And I said,
music.
All my
just
friends.
Listen to this fucking music.
Yeah.
This is the opening for the rest of the show. And, like, even there are times when I watch openings and, like, I really enjoy it and I can rave about it. But then there's, as you go through the show, there eventually comes a point where I was just like, no, I just want to skip the opening.
But this is one of those where you always listen to it over and over again.
Yeah, regardless of how much I want to get to the next episode, and I usually do. I'm just like, no, because once I'm done the show, I will probably never hear this opening again.
That's me with the ending of Erased, that one song. With the girl skipping through the snow and her silhouette.
The opening of Erased was really good. I had that stuck in my head forever. And I think it's even on iTunes, which is really interesting.
Isn't that Asian Kung Fu Generation?
Yes, it is.
That's why. They're fucking amazing.
Oh, wait, no, it is on iTunes, but the version on iTunes isn't the Erased version, because that song, like, they came up with that song, like, a bunch of years back. So you can get the original soundtrack with that song in it, but it's not the Erased version. It's like their older version of it, and they redid it for Erased. So I'm hoping to get that copy somewhere.
Man, this is really great. It's like this is like now the one time where I don't have anything to say, because it's just like, this is a nice song. Yeah. Kind of reminds me a little bit of some of the music in Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei.
I need to go back and rewatch some of that.
It's kind of weird.
Like Zetsubo Sensei, I watched like the first episode of it. Well, not the first season, sorry. And then like I watched a good chunk of the second season, and then for whatever reason I stopped.
The second season's not very good, honestly.
Yeah. But then here in the preview you can see like showing going back in time. And
I love how you just hear the I love how you're just hearing the shamisen playing.
Yeah.
I think that's the shamisen. It's just so so old-fashioned.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah.
That was a good time. Now I got to X out before it goes to the next one, and then I get distracted.
Oh, yeah.